While there's a lot of discontent in America, producing things like Shays' Rebellion in Massachusetts, still ordinary people, when they do talk about where we're going to go, they really seem upbeat. This is going to be just a great country. Look at all the resources we've got that nobody else has. If we can't preserve this union, this is not going to be the heaven on earth that you think it is. If we've split up into rival confederations, well, then each one will want to get the advantage of Western resources for itself, and they may start arming against one another. If we stay united, we might keep European power out of most of North America in any very active way. If we divide, we become just part of their balance of power, and the cost to us will be really enormous.
And the major argument for constitutional reform then became, we need to unite so that the other powers of the world will take us seriously. If we don't, those very same powers are going to take advantage of our divisions, and this will be the opening wedge for counter-revolution.
For these people, the stakes were very, very high. This wasn't just about, will the House of Representatives go back to the Democrats this November, a question that might seem very important to us now. It was about whether there would be a free House as opposed to a monarch or a dictator coming in. Would there be secret conspiracies to overthrow the legitimate power? Because they lived in a world in which these were not untoward, ungrounded fears.
It became increasingly clear that the Articles of Confederation had to go. They had to be replaced by something else. However, there was so much nervousness about even bringing this up for debate that people agreed that they would not institute a new government, but they would only modify the Articles of Confederation.
For most of the 1780s, the basic agenda of reform for men like Madison, John Dickinson, Robert Morris, Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, had been to try to put together some kind of strategy that would enable the Articles of Confederation to be ratified in a kind of piecemeal way. And I think the basic idea was to try to get one amendment adopted and then another, and then to demonstrate that you could actually strengthen the national government without creating a tyranny on the other hand.
Having seen what they thought was a tyrannical government, they were most concerned to erect all kinds of hedges against tyranny. They didn't want a strong central government.
And so finally that leads in 1786 to the expedient of calling it the Annapolis Convention, really as an independent body, not quite tainted the way the Continental Congress was being tainted in terms of public perceptions in the 1780s. And the problem with Annapolis was that although 8 states had appointed commissioners to go there, only about a dozen guys from 5 states show up. So they don't really have enough of a quorum to do anything. But they didn't want to adjourn empty-handed, so they proposed a general convention to meet the following May.
It was a good thing that Annapolis didn't succeed, because then that allowed these energetic, visionary nationalists to take the next step. Because the argument was always that if the Union fails, then anarchy is the next result. And so every successive failure in efforts to amend the Articles also led to this escalating concern about the future of the Union and of the Revolution.
In the months immediately leading up to Philadelphia in May 1787, is the recognition that the time has come not only to save Congress from the states, not only to enable the national government to act independently of the states, not to be dependent upon their compliance with all its recommendations and requisitions and resolutions and proposals and the like, but also to save the states from themselves.
As delegates to the Constitutional Convention begin their journey to Philadelphia in the spring of 1787, some may recognize that the Articles of Confederation did play a significant role in the early days of the Republic.
Under the Articles of Confederation, we survived as a nation. We were not invaded by our former enemies. We learned what it was to create a government. We learned that the states were going to have to work with each other, that they didn't have the war to unite them anymore, so that they had to find other ways to do it. And they got a lot of practice in governing. So I think the Articles of Confederation served a very useful purpose and were an excellent transition to the Constitution. got people thinking about what it is to form a government. So when they met, first in Annapolis and then in Philadelphia, they could get down to the serious work of framing a constitution.